Okay. I've been trying to catch up with my Thanksgiving calls this morning and make sure Miss Sally is not getting antagonized by crazy people in my neighborhood. So let me give you this scenario. Let's assume I go to the next HOA meeting and ask everybody sitting there, how many of you actually got vaccinated? That will be my answer as to whether or not people actually give a shit about what's going on in this community, right? So I've been getting attacked, swatted, if you will, for owning a dog. They had all purchased dogs at the very beginning of the pandemic, did not put them through obedience training, and they bark so loud they sound like they're going to kill whatever dog they're coming up to. But they're trying to tell me that my tiny little dog is the problem in they every year they find something. One year it was the Christmas lights I put up. One year it was that I had the sign up that said flatten the curve, right? One year it was that I was calling in complaints about people being at the pool longer than they're welcome because we have specific hours and they're being loud and playing loud music and being rowdy and being stupid, right? So this is supposed to be a private community, you guys. It's not maintained by my community. It is maintained by my HOA, but nobody wants to take responsibility for what is happening in my community. Period. Despite the fact that they have giant ass dogs walking through this neighborhood who bark like they're going to fucking kill any other dog that comes up to them. There are dogs that get left out in backyards on the townhomes that bark all day. All day. But I'm getting swatted. When I let my dog out to do her business, and she's like, oh my God, there's so many bad spirits in my neighborhood. At least from what I can tell from my security camera, they've at least started walking on the other side of the street closer to the pool, but it's still not far enough. Especially if you're like saying things like shush, which is what one of the ladies did. If you are going through people's trash cans, which one of the ladies did, my dog is going to notice. I'm going to notice because I'm sitting out here with her, right? And like, who the fuck are you to swat me like that? Anyhow, let's see what Chantel's up with, who doesn't want to take care of her cat at all, and she apparently has new stitches because dumbass bitch didn't put the goddamn cone on her head.
What is going on, guys? Welcome back. A commentary for you. A 2-hour live stream. Chantal promises that she may be back later, so this could potentially not be all we see in here.
Nobody cares if you want to lie about having a driver's license. Quite literally, Chantel, I had a fake ID when I was 16 so that I could get into the 16 and up clubs. Well, I was 15 technically, so right. But that's what you're doing. You're like, I need a fake ID. Shut up. You were not there legally, in my opinion, my humble opinion, based on the information you've presented to us. You were not there legally. You were a visitor. But I would love to see you drive on Kuwaiti streets. I'd love to see you drive on Atlanta freeways. I'd love to see you drive on LA freeways. If you think you're so fucking good at this, okay? Let's go.
For the day, but she goes through the normal hellos, says, she doesn't celebrate Thanksgiving, that she only made the video yesterday for her fans. I guess the fact that she just...
What fans? I'm sorry, I did look at your stats. It was like somewhere between 50 and 60% that are American. And they're probably the fattest Americans in the country from the most Republican areas, the reddest states, if you will. And you're too ignorant to actually look into what you're doing, get educated, and use your platform to try and get people to do the right thing, like spay and neuter their pets. I mean, shit, what was that guy's name from The Price is Right? He used to have something at the end of every show where he talked about spaying and neutering their pets. And here we are, nearly 40 years later. Probably 40 years later. And I know how much you like 80s fucking culture. And you're like, oh no, that's not porn, no, whatever. Oh, she had to be restitched up? Not a big deal.
Got to have that meal was a bonus. She says she has takeout on the way, and then refuses to go kind of back into the license, the driving, and she reiterates that Salo loves her cooking despite the fact that they get takeout nearly every other day. She says Sunday is the time she's going to go out for her first drive, and she talks about going to Starbucks. She says, though, she does try to avoid Starbucks because, they don't align with her beliefs. She says the Beezers are like her kids, and that's how she feels about taking them out. And she said she's going to, like I said, probably go live later, that she wants to have another meal. She says, the meal she's getting right now isn't all that interesting. And she says that her driving won't...
Go answer a goddamn door. Show your license. I'm so tired of you being like, I don't want them to see me. Oh my God. I got an email this morning from next door for my community, and it said that somebody in my area had teenagers trying to kick in the doors. A couple of them were caught on doorbell cams. And you know what? Those people, as far as I know, did not report them to the police because they're just teenagers. They're just trying to scare us. Well, the one who came up by me broke my goddamn door jamb. That is felony vandalism. Unless they were actually trying to get in. That would have been break and entry. But it's people like you who make society more difficult for us law-abiding citizens to live in nice communities.
Won't be the same in Kuwait as it was in Canada. She also says Julia's fine, the incision is fine. We see Julia before the end of the stream, and she's going to take her back to the vet soon. When the food arrives, she does that same thing where she's very quiet, she mutes the mic, she can't be heard. She says her hands smell like garlic, and she also kind of pulls the camera away and puts it to the wall while the food is arriving.
You know what, though? You're giving her mixed messages, because half of the channels are like, we can't hear you at all. We need to raise the volume. And half of the channels are like, we do not want to hear her fucking eating. We don't want to hear it going down her esophagus. Right? We don't want to hear her jaw unclicking. So there's a lot of mixed messages going out to Chantel, and you guys need to figure it out, because it's either I'm going to hear all of this bullshit coming out of her mouth, or I'm just going to realize that she's inaudible.
Literally, this is 12 minutes into the stream. She could have just avoided all of that by waiting. She goes on to say, she's a woman there, so she's protected. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't know.
You're a woman in Kuwait, and so therefore you're protected. Okay. That is news to me, girlfriend. Okay.
For sure, but I believe here's the call to prayer, but prepares the food instead. And she said that she has to run and use the bathroom before she eats, and she returns advising everyone that she washed her hands. And honestly, it's what you used to see her eating. Huge pile of rice, chicken.
Did you wash your feet? You're supposed to do that too. Okay.
One bite, she's falling over herself with how good it is, and she of course starts diving into all the bread. And she said she's not going to live stream while she drives, that she needs to be careful since the quote haters are already looking into the laws, and this means she has to be.
Yeah, I'm sorry, you jumped over a curb, you've gone over what, frogs, turtles or something. You have ended up with a rabbit in your front grill. You have no business driving. You are not capable of driving, and you lied. Let's be real. In my humble opinion, you lied about seeing an eye doctor on December 18th. You did not go to the ER that day. You were not feeling dizzy and faint. You did not get behind the wheel in that condition to drive yourself to the ER. That is my personal opinion. My personal opinion is that that's the day that Salah started his affair with Kybella. You already knew about it. And so you spent the day with Pete's getting high. Personal opinion, I'm not a professional.
Extra mindful. And she says that she's having issues sleeping because Julia's been wearing the cone, and she goes into how this meal was so cheap. They had to order 2 meals. They couldn't do without 2. They had to meet the order minimum for free delivery. And the issue with this is we just saw her eat what by all accounts was bad meat and then make a meal with bad potatoes.
Ugh.
This Salt and Stone deodorant has replaced.
We see these massive food hauls, and it really seems like a lot of it is just wasted because they end up getting takeout. Now granted, the candy, the chips, the butter, any type of cheese, that all seems to be consumed. But, pounds and pounds of vegetables just don't seem to be used. She starts to get into this back and forth with someone watching about her license, and she says that right now she's just withholding information. That's not lying. And she says the fact that she has a license is all she needs to know. But again, Chantel, you made a 13-minute video on this. The chat tells her to just cut out rice. And she says, this isn't even that much. And she could portion it out. She actually eats all of the rice, so I don't know where she's getting some of that from.
Well, if you could portion it out, why don't you show us that in the kitchen? Where you've got your little storage containers, and you have your family size meal, and you portion out the extra portions first, put them away. You don't have to put them in the fridge right away because you want them to cool, right? But cut everything into an actual dinner size meal. Put it on a regular size plate, Chantel, and stop giving us dumbass excuses that the rest of the adults around you understand are bullshit.
And she also has bread to go with it. She, of course, goes on about how cheap the food is, how she would miss the food if they left. And she tries to start some drama over the past Beezers, saying, they sure...
What the fuck did she do to the middle of that plate? Oh my god. Did it come in like that? Stacked up like that? Oh my god.
Circuit once they leave, and clearly she's been on Twitter. Her past mods, her new mods have been going at it, and all of this is just recited while she mindlessly eats. It's almost like, honestly, she doesn't understand that she's eating.
Well, she doesn't listen to any audience feedback. Her audience is telling her that her mods are crap. And she's like, don't talk bad about my mods. I will not hear anything bad about them. Really? Well, you didn't want to hear anything bad about Shani for Christ and the Rev. You didn't want to hear anything bad about Missy Moo. You didn't want to hear anything bad about Aisha or Kai Bella. These were all people that were on your highest level. I wonder if he's going to get into the whole, I don't know why they keep turning weird on me.
Mods come in, and of course, they strengthen the argument by saying this is still happening. Chantal, of course, projects that no one has a life. And she says that, she's already went out on her own, but she just didn't film it. And she leads in that, people don't like her. Now,
I don't care. Honestly, I don't care. If you're capable of driving a vehicle and getting out there and doing your thing, I think that's rad for you. But the way you're positioning it on your channel is way eyebrow raising.
But before, they didn't have any issues. And it's almost like she doesn't understand that over time, people's opinions can change. She pushes back against the chat, which is trying to be helpful by saying, they don't know her blood sugar, her A1C, and, her channel is built up.
No, you quite literally told us on a live stream within the last couple of days that it was 10.2 before you went to bed. That's still like hospital level. So knock it off, girl.
Sitting down and eating. They bring up Shani wanting to box her, and she laughs this off. She says Shani can't even stand to box. And, a big part of me thinks that this is really all going to come back to haunt Chantal. I mean, the way she talks about being immobile and laughing at this stuff. None of what she said about Jen aged well. And Chantal is doing little to nothing to change her ways since Jen. So why do we have any hope that it's going to get better now? The chat tells her that, based on her status, she shouldn't get a license, and she just starts mocking people. Chantal, the reality is you're 40.
Well, yeah, we can go into the fact that she would not pass a driver's test because she's using, like, CVS readers to try and look at the road, right? Like, she can't see. She can't turn her neck. Her belly is so large that she can't see her feet. So that's going to make it very difficult to move from the gas pedal to the brake, right? She's freaked out because they have more traffic in Kuwait than they do in Cornwall or whatever it's called. I can't. If you're going to travel, you're going to have to learn to drive in more high trafficked areas, quite frankly. That's just a reality, period. But this whole back and forth with your crazy town, I mean, you should have never had Shani for Christ and Rev as esteemed members of your community at all. But at least Shani for Christ was she was at least honest that because of her supreme morbidity issues, she was incapable of being a parent. That does not excuse Rev for his child abuse, right? His alleged child abuse. But reality is, if she was in a severe place where she could not actually take care of her children anymore, then obviously she should make other arrangements, preferably with family. But I don't know what her situation is. I'm not trying to make excuses for these people. These are your people, not my people, right? These are people that you wanted to take money from. And the minute they started complaining about the fact that you didn't get a spay for Julia, you had a goddamn meltdown. But that's probably just part of your drama so you can try and get views. And the reality is you're not getting views. The reaction channels are.
Years old. You know, the flex that you have a license, the flex that you can drive, I don't know if it's what you think it is. You know, I would actually make the case that it says a lot more about you that it took 2 years plus for you to get a license, that you haven't attempted to learn the language, than it does getting it now. And after 50 minutes, nearly all the food is gone. And as I said before, you get the impression it doesn't even register with her that she ate. You know, she justifies it because it was her only meal. She wasn't feeling well. It was only a small portion. And she says, you know, people look obsessed.
God damn, dude. Did you watch my Thanksgiving live stream last night? Okay.
Talking about the amount of food that she eats. And we look dumb. That if she ate soup, people would still be outraged. And she says, you know, tons of people get their license and don't show anything.
Oh my God, you guys. I literally had egg drop soup on Wednesday. And I talked about how I couldn't finish my Thanksgiving meal because I was in a lot of pain. I can't even with this crazy bitch.
Again, Chantal, no one's disputing that. I mean, the reality is, though, most people don't get a license, make a 13-minute video about it, get a license, say, all these things have changed, I can get my license. That's why it's a talking point, because at the point you're in right now, everyone has to take what you say with a grain of salt, or a bag of salt, or a small mountain of salt. And that's all of your own doing. The chat even tells her, listen, you eating like this can be triggering. You know, people have family members that are diabetics. And she says, well, then just stop watching. Don't be a snowflake. All the reactors are rage pigs. They only wanted her stuck in the apartment. Chantal, I can confidently say for myself, I don't want you stuck in this apartment. We want you out. We've, in most cases, encouraged you to go out. But, you know, we can only do that so much. You know, you sitting and eating isn't, you know, riveting.
Where's Julia? Where's Julia, girlfriend? Has Salah taken her under shelter at this point because of all the bullshit you did to her? Making sure she wasn't wearing her cone?
After an hour, she said, you know, she's going to continue to go on about the license. Doesn't matter how she got it. Everyone is just jealous. Everyone is envious of her now. And that she wouldn't risk driving illegally, which...
I don't know how you can feel that way when I've gotten everything I've ever had through legitimate means. I don't go to a back alley fucking vet to get painkillers, girlfriend.
Chantal, at some point you either did or didn't before. She goes on to say, you know, nobody works but her. Her and Sal, only one that work. She tries to go over her driving history and how everything has just been fine. And the chat corrects her. She's hit curbs, animals, other cars. And as soon as this gets brought up, she excuses everything away. The accident was not her fault. You know, she didn't hit the other car hard. They also bring up the condition that she would drive in. She goes back, this is 3 years ago. It shouldn't matter. Then she literally goes at 2 reactors, bringing up things that happened more than 3 years ago, and laughs about FSham. She blames the accident she was in on her ex. And then she takes this long break to go get a 3-in-1.
Oh my God, I've seen at least 2 other dudes who did the same thing. One of them was my ex-boyfriend who claimed actually we weren't even a couple. We were just having a fling. And he he totaled the car. Fortunately, we're all fine. But he threw a screaming fit at me. Like, if you've ever known somebody like that who just like fucking loses it and starts screaming at you. And he blamed me for raising my hands and blocking his vision, which was impossible because I was holding my cell phone in one hand and I was holding a drink in the other because we were in Louisiana where that was legal. The second one was in Florida, and it was one of his friends. And his friend's mentee. He was the mentor, she was the mentee. She came up to me and described almost an identical situation where he fucked up and immediately started screaming at her.
And she says, the raging she does is just the irony of girlhood, that everyone else does worse to her, and this is just self-defense. She's back to Yaba. She's back to, everyone just makes fun of her weight, and they shouldn't. Look at FFG. She said she needs to get back on the treadmill, and then gets the shisha, says the shisha's the anti-treadmill. And I just want to point out her own community post 3 days ago, I will never rage. You will never get that from me again, no matter how hard you try. No more snapping. Don't worry about it. Only legal action from now on, cuties. And yet here we are. An hour in and all of this. The treadmill makes her skin better. The chat tells her the shisha is the opposite of the treadmill. She says it's easier to talk about things rather than do them. She goes on to talk about Sansa, the cost of celery, justifies all her junk food hauls. And she says, this is why people call her a liar. Going over the cost of the celery, going over eating so many pickles. And of course, Sansa is wrong. I mean, Chantal, listen, the fact that you have to use all these non-scale victories, full well knowing you don't have a actual scale of victory to show, says everything. After 90 minutes, she's went after just about every reaction channel, but she doesn't watch them. Everyone else is obsessed. No one else has a life. And the chat continues to go back to the Papa John story, which, she admits happened. She admits took place, but she doesn't admit what actually happened. Right? She was live. She was doing things. We saw it. She conveniently leaves all of that out. I mean, Chantal, listen, you can rewrite everything you want as much as you want, because at this point, I think all it does is give you confidence. In one day, whether it's luck, whether it's overconfidence, it's going to run out. And I'm going to be honest with you. If it runs out in Kuwait, you were in for the rudest awakening ever.
I wish I could just have a chef prepare my weight loss meals.
Of a bad relationship. Omits the fact that she begged that person to go with her. We've seen those messages. And then she says, I just got drunk and I raged. That's the story. I mean, that's really not the story. And you've repeated a lot of the same sentiment that you repeated in Cuba currently. But now she wants to say, now that I'm a Muslim, I've learned that you can't drink. It puts you into a dark place, and, labels everyone trying to accuse her of having problems to having worse problems, including taking pills, which, again, Chantal, where are you getting any of this from? It's so much the same things you complain people do to you, you do to other people. And, of course, to her, this is
the biggest Karen I've ever seen. She's the biggest Karen I have ever seen.
It's all insane. It's people getting attention. But she gives them attention. She talks about how all the mods, turn against her and go crazy. 2 hours of eating, smoking, talking about what she's going to do, be it driving, be it treadmill. Salah is laughing in the other room, practically screaming that he loves Chantal. She's there yawning, going on and on about Aisha. And how Aisha's world must revolve around Chantal. Salah is like cackling in the background.
Hey, did you guys all notice that the person she went to have coffee with, I'm going to be careful in how I say this, she kind of came across as a big boobs McGee, is all I'm saying. Was she the one texting Salah?
And at this point, neither of them realize where Julia is. And some of the chat tells her, just let go. Just let go of reaction channels. She shows Julia. Julia's, of course, not wearing the cone. The incision, I will say, looks better today than really ever before. But she continues to smoke directly by a cat with an open incision.
Wow.
And, of course, her only response is, oh, she's fine. She's back to biting mom. She goes back to, rehoming Sam and BBJ. And the chat asks her, why do you continue to show Julia? You just said that you weren't going to show her anymore. The chat knows that all it does is just give reaction channels something to talk about, and so does she. She says she doesn't know why she brings it up. She just does. And again, like I said, she's going to be back in a few hours because she enjoyed, quote, venting about dumb losers. Chantal, seriously, I again, didn't cover your channel for a couple days, didn't impact your views. Even your own beezers in this chat are telling you, listen, enough is enough. You've got to find something else to do. I personally think going out and driving probably would be more entertaining than this. Clearly you don't want to take the health arc option, but
just be careful with that garlic bread, because if you're out there producing videos encouraging her to drive and she ends up actually hurting somebody, she can point back to your video. So, in my opinion, Chantal, you are not capable of driving. You know you're not. And if you hurt somebody, that is totally on you. If you hurt an animal, that is totally on you.
When you're seeing people that have been there watching the same thing for hours and hours and hours telling you enough about reaction channels, enough with the cat, enough sitting there eating all this food, it's up to you. You have to look at them and say, okay, my audience wants something different, and I have to do it. Because your videos, they are getting less and less viewed. The comments are getting less and less. Even with reaction channels. This video here could have been done at any point. Omitting the license information, this could have been at any point over the last 8 months. And in fact, in many ways, you've done the same thing. It's the same insults. It's the same jokes. It's the same foods. It's the same wall. It's the same spoonfuls. It's the same everything, Chantal. And I got news for you. You are a lot more dependent on this than anyone else. Love to know your thoughts on this. Top comments from the last video. Appreciate you watching it. Just like a takeout driver to Chantal's door. I'll be back as soon as I can.
Well, thank you for the content, garlic bread. Thank you for the summary, because it's hard to deal with her in real time. And I'm trying to recuperate from hurting my leg further yesterday. And I don't get it with her at all. I don't. I'm going to put your link down and tag you and whatever, this is her life. She's a big girl in more ways than one, and she should be doing better for her family, including her pet family.